I do a lot of heat setting, like probably a smidge too much heat setting. But to reinforce my habit, I built myself a new toy to make heat setting even more fun. And I had quite a good time in the design of this one too, tossing in a number of things I'd never tried before, like some all jewel bearing 4-bar linkages, a funky little counterbalance mechanism for one of those 4-bar linkages, and a 3D printed stainless steel quick tip changer. This isn't my first foray into heat set helpers. A couple of years ago, I built this fella to help me ensure my heat sets went in nice and normal to the table surface. But while the dual linear rods did indeed give nice linear motion, the thing's kinda cumbersome, and was never really expected to stick around as long as it has. And while playing around with the design for a 4-bar linkage, I decided now was just the time to upgrade my hot hole poking capabilities. The design for my new heat set helper has 4 main subsystems. The base, not very exciting, but pretty important. The rotary, basically a lazy Susan. The arm, made up of 2 sections of 4-bar linkages. And the hotend, which is, the hot end. There are a few fun aspects to that hot end I'm pretty excited about with this one. From a functional perspective, the main improvement was a retainer system for holding the heat set tips in place. Previously, I just used the stock threaded retainer, which made hot swaps awkward and mildly dangerous. This time, I ditched the stock retainer entirely. Instead, I decided to go with a metal printed retainer that can be dropped just by pulling out this little handle here. And that metal printed retainer is something else I was pretty stoked about. This is my first time trying out PCBWay's printed stainless steel option. I opted for stainless steel over aluminum because stainless is a terrible conductor of heat, which is exactly what you want when you're trying to keep 300 degrees of hot away from your 3D printed plastic parts. I tried to keep the profile as small as reasonably possible down around the tip to ensure it doesn't get in the way of accessing holes inside of recesses and such. It is larger than the screw-on, but not by much. Plus, the screw-on still works with this, so I always have the option of just swapping it back if I want. And that's because the soldering iron itself is being held by some of those printed plastic bits above. While I'm hopeful that my narrow sections of stainless will keep the temps at the interface reasonable, I wasn't quite ready to rely on hope alone. So I decided to go with one of PCBWay's temp-resistant resins for this iron mount here. It has a heat deflection temp of a little over 100 C for low loads like this, and that should just give me a little extra safety margin in case I decide to leave the iron on for a bit. The iron sits in this tapered V-channel that's taper matched to the iron handle. Holding that iron in place, and providing me a nice little handle here, is yet another PCBWay resin. This one has a shore hardness of between 60 and 75A, so it deforms around the iron and provides plenty of friction to keep things constrained axially. Plus, the squishy material makes the ball handle feel nice, so double win. All of that together then attaches to its subsystem neighbor with this interface here. And while this interface features a couple of crimes against good practice, you'll see that I committed those same crimes a bit later, so sue me. Crime number 1, it locates on threads, with these 2 M4 fasteners here acting as shear pins between the 2 mounts. And number 2 is that because both sides of this are rigid, and I don't want to press fit the tongue into the groove here, I don't have a defined constraint for the lateral movement. But I'll be honest, I figure I can get away with enough torque on those 2 M4s to break that rigid assumption. I printed it in PETG to give it some help. Not saying it's right, just saying it's what I did. And they seem to have worked out just fine. They feel nice and snug without having to over-tighten them. And I'm tightening them to the subsystem that really got me into this whole thing. Fun with 4 bars. I was playing around with an idea for a 4-bar mechanism that used only jewel bearings. Disclaimer up front, I make no claims of this being a novel design, but I couldn't be bothered to Google. So I designed me up a little prototype. When I say jewel bearing, what I really mean is a steel ball sitting in a 3D printed plastic cone. A sphere sitting in a cone can rotate about all 3 axes, but it can't translate anywhere. That means the center of the ball is fixed in place relative to that cone. If I add a second ball and cone to the other side of that plastic bit, I now have a defined axis of rotation between the center of those 2 balls. Pretty neat, right? Okay, just me? You're missing out. So the idea was just to Control-C, Control-V this concept all over a 4-bar mechanism. Oh, right, but why a 4-bar mechanism in the first place for a heat setter? Well, a parallel 4-bar will maintain angular orientation of the rigid links at the ends, so no matter where I move my arms, the hot end will always remain vertical. But remaining vertical isn't very useful if you can't reach your parts. Luckily, it's a pretty straightforward bit o' trig to model the range of motion for this sort of thing. So I wrote a little collab notebook to sweep through arm geometries and map reachable locations. I decided to go with 3 links per segment, with the bottoms doubled up to give a little more torsional stiffness. But you may have noticed, one of these links is not like the others. That's because, as with my own elbow, this arm doesn't like to invert. so the center arm on the base side got a little extra love. I modeled in a timing belt pulley into the base of that arm, and this notch flexure up top. I can't make it through a build without at least one. That flexure bit acts as a clamp to fix that end of the belt. The other end of the belt is attached to this spring. I designed it for this specific spring from McMaster, but I'm both cheap and impatient, so I instead went with stacking a couple of springs from the spare parts shelf that seemed to give a comparable stiffness and range. The further down the arm is in its range of motion, the higher the moment caused by the cantilever, but also the higher the reaction force from the elongated spring. Same counterbalance concept as the springs on the outside of those cool desk lamps, just a different implementation. Not gonna lie, I find this so satisfying. I'm really happy with how this part came out. Less satisfying to watch, but what I'm equally proud of myself for remembering to include, was this little bit of cable management on the center link. I feel so responsible. All in all, I am extremely happy with how this arm came out. The little bit of friction at the ball to cone interface actually makes the motion feel a bit more controlled, and I'm very pleasantly surprised with the out-of-plane stiffness. If they fail, they'll fail magnificently, but within their load limits, these jewel bearings are a delight. Speaking of if they fail, they'll fail magnificently, let's take a look at the ball champ, the Rotary. I went with a design I've used quite a few times previously. The design has a stationary bit with V-grooves around the perimeter on top and bottom. Up top, the rotor has a matching V-groove channel, and these two V-grooves act as the bearing raises for the balls between them. The upper bit's intended to constrain all 5 degrees of freedom that I want constrained, and the lower portion is really just there for preloading. My intent is for this cantilevered section here to deflect as the assembly is clamped together, acting as a preload spring. I like this design because it's pretty easy to integrate, and balls are cheap. It actually works pretty well for this particular application. I don't need high speed, and I don't need high precision motion. It feels stable and holds position a bit, which works out nicely. To transfer that swinging into the Rotary, the top bits have the second tongue and groove joint I told you you'd be seeing. The only significant difference is that this one uses M5s instead of M4s. If I were smart, I probably would have left the bottom channel open to allow these to squeeze the tab a bit better. But I'm not, so I didn't. For my base, I just went with a Thorlabs optical breadboard that I got from scrap a while back. Since I know not everyone will have one of those laying around, I did design an alternative version, should someone want it. But if you go that route, make sure you toss some density in this area here to keep the thing anchored. I have linked to an article with all the details down below, including to the Fusion files if you're brave enough to deal with my catting chaos. I also just want to give a sincere thank you to the people who support me as YouTube members and patrons. It really means a ton to me that people put their hard-earned dollars towards saying they like what I'm doing. I really appreciate it. Oh, and I've already found some bonus tricks up this thing's sleeve. Until next time.